I am joined today by a Sasquatch investigator, Zeus Platt. Zeus, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. So, if I hear correctly, you said you had about 27 to a little over 20, or no, almost 30 years of time investigating Sasquatch, correct?
Yeah, yeah. It's been about 34 since I've seen my first group of Sasquatch. But
Group. Wow, that's insane. So, how does one start in this? What is your Marvel origin story, if you would?
um, it all started when I was young. Uh, I grew up in a homestead log cabin, dirt floor. Uh, some of the best years of my life. And well, my dad had always spoke of Sasquatch. When I was young, it just kind of went in a ear and out the other. I was just too busy, just enjoying life, enjoying the outdoors, playing with crawdads, fishing, whatever. But long story kind of short, we were actually planning a camping trip up in above Gateway, Colorado, and there's a into these because it's kind of a canyon lands over there, and then on the western area there's a little grouping of mountains, and we were actually going camping up there, and it's extremely desolate. Good luck seeing anybody up there. So we were actually heading up, and we were going to head up that night, and a bunch of the friends of my mom and dad's were actually going to come up the next day in the morning. So we were actually making our way up there on this little dirt road, and well, the Suburban broke down. Later found out it was the fuel pump, was the old school fuel pump that runs off of the little rocker arm that goes into the engine, and it actually runs off of that. But so that actually went out and was like, okay, well, the guys are coming up the next day. One of them is a mechanic. He surely has parts, something like that. And we all, fell asleep in the big four-door older Suburban. And I got woken up by the Suburban kind of rocking like a boat. Nobody else woke up, but I did. And I got up, and when I got up, I was just, half groggy, just kind of woke up, and I was like, well, that was weird. But when I looked up out the window, looking around, I noticed this figure standing there, and it had no neck, had glowing red eyes, which I later found out in my investigations that that's not really a good thing. And behind in the window behind me, because I'm not laying longwise in the Suburban, I'm laying to the side because again, I was just a kid, I was kind of short anyway.
Yeah. How old were
Uh,
you then? One more time. How old were you when you first had this encounter?
I think I was 11 or 12. It was about
Oh, okay.
11.
So about preteen. Okay.
Yeah, which I found out later too. It makes sense why they were looking in the window at us kids and not the adult. And so I had actually, I kind of screamed, not like a little girl, just like, freaked out because when I looked behind me, there was probably about a medium-sized one. It was definitely shorter than the one in the east window, and a smaller one that was just barely, peeking over, looking through the window. It was probably, I don't know, 4 foot tall or so. And when I kind of, freaked out, and my dad woke up, and they just kind of slowly went down. They didn't just turn away and take off running. They just kind of slowly, smoothly just went out of view of the window, and that was it. They were gone, no noise, no anything. And finally got calmed down, and uh, that was the first instance, first time I ever seen something like that. And ever since then, I've been in a major pursuit to try and learn more about these guys, because when I seen these when I was a kid, I was just like, okay, well, what the hell were those? What was that? It was I like, oh my, that's completely out of the realm of what I normally seen. Or we'd go get we'd go get deer and elk all the time. That was our grocery list, just the woods, and that was completely out of the normal for me. I didn't know what the hell those were, and I've been on a mission ever since to figure out what they are, and ever since then I've seen lots and lots and lots of them.
That's that's pretty crazy. I've heard plenty of Bigfoot stories, but nothing with one literally inches away from you. Uh, What, so going in, so 34 years later, here we are, 34, give or take. We're here now. You're a full blown Sasquatch investigator. What exactly does a Sasquatch investigator do day in, day out? Like, what, obviously it's probably a lot of field work, but like, is there like a base of operation for you? Is there a crew that you bring and you guys go out on specific, like, okay, hey, we're going to track this, 20 miles of land here and we're going to scour it and see if we can find anything?
Um, it's not really too much of a big deal as far as that's concerned. I do work. Um, I have my wife with me. I've had people come out with me in the past. They've had experience with these creatures, and they basically won't step foot, at least not with me back out in the woods. Um, as far as finding these creatures, I do find them on a regular basis. Uh, I take a video. I have a video camera with me, EMF detector, radiation detector. I have a dash cam uh, microphone deal that I take out with me. I got all this technology with me. I'm still working on trying to get a FLIR, but that's a bit on the expensive side. Um, I do not actually have a crew or say a base of operation like down here in town. I don't have like a building or anything, you know what I
Right.
mean? Uh, it's just basically just whenever like on my days off from work or even in the afternoon when I get off work, I'll head up into the mountains. It's either fishing or I'll go out in certain areas and I'll investigate whether they be new areas or areas I've already investigated and had a lot of action and encounter, and I've gotten pictures of them and stuff like that. Um, it's really kind of hard for me to find a crew because a lot of people don't take this subject as serious as they ought to and that they should, because this is an extremely serious matter. Um, the Sasquatch, I believe, and I've said it for years, is the key to many, many things. And people just kind of throw it out the window. They're not very serious about it. And then the ones that do come out with me, because I'll have people, ask me, well, can I come out with you? Can I investigate with you? And I'm not greedy or I'm not an ass about it. I simply tell them, don't be revealing the location to where I went. I don't want a bunch of people in there bothering me.
Right. Yeah. You don't want a bunch of amateurs showing up and
Exactly.
kind of muddling up and then bringing attention, and then maybe this creature leaves and is no longer there, and you just lost your trail.
Yeah. And it's a, it's about showing them respect. These are creatures with a very high intelligence, even more intelligent than we are. Um, it's a matter of just showing them respect, even though a lot of the areas that I go and investigate, I may only hit there once a year, and I'll move to another area. Each one of these areas I'll hit just once a year. I don't go in there a lot. I don't want to bother them a lot, and keeping everything kind of hush hush. I kind of do in such a way because I don't need people going in there and flushing these creatures out. Getting themselves in trouble, maybe one of somebody get hurt, or just invading the space of these creatures, because any more of these creatures to me are like seeing elk. It's like, oh, I see a Sasquatch, I get super excited, and I almost do the same thing when I see an elk. I get really excited. I just never gets old. But with the Sasquatch, I need to know more. I want to learn more. I want to know, how long they've been here, where they come from, their language. They have a language. Why they build these structures out in the woods that so many people count off. So many people say the wind done that, and it's like I roll my eyes every time. It's this stuff out there isn't wind blown or made by humans. People don't take 600-pound logs and throw them into an X and the same characteristics that's basically found all over the planet. And not only that, there's many, many other structures that they do, and it's all they're real territorial, and they're symbolic in their ways. As far as those structures are symbolic, they mean something to one another. we have no clue yet. That's it's like taking, symbolism and throwing it up out there, and it means something to them. And we would do the same thing if we were trying to tell somebody else something. Like I think like hobos, if I'm saying that right, excuse me if I'm not, like these hobo type people back in the day and probably even current, they make stick structures to symbolize one to one another, danger, food in the area, whatever, you know what I mean? To my understanding, reading up on it a little bit, that's what they do. They make little symbols out of sticks, kind of like the same thing as a Sasquatch. It's
Right.
it's a visual communication.
So I have a question. You said this a little bit earlier. You said that the Sasquatch is the key to many things. What are you referring to when you say key to many things? Like, is it just like maybe a different perspective on the world and nature, or is it like this sounds a little tongue in cheek, but maybe like a meaning of life kind of deal?
Yeah, very. I think very much so. There's a lot of aspects in there with the Sasquatch, and I do. Again, it's a theory, but it's also a feeling, and from just years of experience of encountering these creatures, it's pretty much. I do believe they're the key. They're the key to understanding where we came from, for one. They're I believe they are involved with the extraterrestrials in some way or somehow. I don't really know. I know I have personally experienced areas where I've seen Sasquatch. There's been a UFO flying overhead, and
Right.
I've tried
I've
getting
heard a lot of that too. There's a lot of cross uh, sightings there. It's like I saw Bigfoot, but then I also I forgot. I was listening to a show about one where um, the Bigfoot were coming out of the UFO.
Yeah, I've actually heard some reports on that. I personally haven't experienced anything like that. I've just seen them overhead in an area where
Right, which is
I've
still
seen Sasquatch.
that's almost like a unicorn checklet, like a bingo card. Like I saw a Sasquatch and I saw a UFO. Like it's like one by itself is already intense, and then the fact that you're seeing both is even more phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. Quite often I've seen uh, a UFO fly overhead where I have Sasquatch activity, and I've tried getting them on camera, and it's just you just can't really see him. I mean, and I try to zoom in on them, and it's too shaky, and it just looks like crap. And I don't know. Oh, it's pretty much has got my word, unless they get close enough to where I could get a pretty adequate, nice little video of a UFO. Um, uh, but it's kind of like like the same with Sasquatch. You take a picture of Sasquatch or a video of them. They're generally out there ways, and you got to zoom the video in a little bit. It gets a little pixelated. Uh, oh God, don't get me started on all this. They do, they affect your equipment.
Yeah, I've heard
And
that
as far as
they are you under the belief that they also possess some like supernatural qualities
oh
to them
yeah,
as well? Okay, because I've heard that. I haven't done too much research into that aspect, but I have heard numerous people say that they're not just a creature that's on Earth. It's like a being more so.
um, yeah, absolutely. I have experienced and I've seen Sasquatch do things on the supernatural realm that's over our understanding and over our heads. And a lot of people can accept, they know the Sasquatch is out there, but in their eyes, the Sasquatch is nothing but a big dumb ape. They don't have a language. They don't make stick structures. They don't do anything but jump around and go, whoop 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 out in the woods. And that's completely false. And I know that from experience. I've been in this years and years. I spent my life out in the woods. I know these woods like the back of my hand, the whole western U.S. And I've seen Sasquatch do some extremely mysterious things. It's just kind of on the paranormal realm, and I have no explanation involving orbs, involving them unzipping reality and stepping into this door in reality. It's I've seen him do that, and I can explain that, and it is what it is. I've had people look at me and basically look at me like I was, either lying or I was full of crap. And I'm like, whatever you want to believe, I know what I've seen and I know what I experienced. This is what I do. This is why I do it. I investigate. I figure these creatures out. I'm trying to, at least. I risk my life going out there to do so. And when I see something unusual like that, I'm not afraid to talk about it. It's like, well, you either say yeah, I'm lying or I'm full of it, or you accept it. Because either way, whether you believe or say I'm full of it, it's there, whether you believe in it or not. It actually happened, and they do it on a regular basis. I've had people tell me that the Sasquatch is that they think it's I guess you would say, more like a non-physical being, I guess you could say.
Right.
And I have my reasons behind why I know for a matter of a fact they are a physical being. And I've talked about this on previous shows. I am probably not going to talk about it right now because it's an extremely sensitive subject, and there's reasons though. Just know that there's reasons I know why the Sasquatch is a physical being. Every human on this planet has the ability to manipulate energy like a Sasquatch does. Your consciousness, the Sasquatch consciousness, is so much higher, and they have more abilities in this paranormal aspect than we do. I mean, we could too if we knew how. We could unzip reality and go into this other dimension if we knew how, but we don't. All we believe in is money, negativity, war, and suicidal thoughts. You know
Right.
what
So
I
you're
mean?
saying that
And
so Sasquatch is the key to understanding how to activate
exactly,
like that ability of being able to be interdimensional or be like an ethereal being more so than just a grounded physical person.
exactly. This, and as far as extraterrestrials, I believe that they are a key to the extraterrestrial realm as far as aliens. Um, I think the Sasquatch have been here for millions of years. There's other people that actually have told me that they themselves are extraterrestrials and came to this planet. I'm not going to argue that. That very well may be so. But if they did come from another planet far away or whatever, they did so millions of years ago. These Sasquatch have been here for a very long time, and I don't think people understand how long they've been here.
Right. So, uh, as somebody, because you were saying before we started this show that you take down sightings from other people. So, how many different areas of the world have reported sightings, at least to you? Because obviously, we have the Yeti, which is more of like a Himalayan term for almost the same type of creature. But from you and from what you have encountered with people out there reporting sightings, where do you see the most of these sightings occurring?
Well, in my area, there's a lot of tourism, and a lot of people around the world actually have seen my stuff. They've learned from it because this is why I do it. I do it and for an educational matter only, scientific educational matter.
Right.
And so a lot of people know about me. They know about me clear in Russia, Spain, Turkey, Pakistan, wherever. And I've had folks from Pakistan. I've had them from Spain, Italy, South America, Japan, uh, Russia, definitely Russia, a lot from Russia. And I think that's it as far as people reporting to me what they've seen. They talk to me about it. And but as far as I know of other investigators and seeing stories from other people, there's Sasquatch in every inch in every part of the globe. There's a different species. They're all Sasquatch, but there's a different type of species on every part of the globe. Like throughout the U.S. and even in the desert communities,
Right.
there's Sasquatch out there.
So
And
you're telling me
I
there's a possibility there's a Sasquatch species here in Vegas, out in the
exactly.
Mojave Desert out here.
Oh yeah, you'll be surprised. If there was actually a team or anybody that was actually dedicated and knew what they were looking for and knew how to investigate these creatures, that being so desert out in the Las Vegas area, they that habitat is so much different from where, say, I am. Uh, it's more of a desert area, but I could bet you with everything that I have, there's Sasquatch out there. Down in New Mexico, in the desert in Mexico, I've had reportings of Sasquatch, and there's not a single tree around. It's all just it kind of looks a lot like Las Vegas. There's like some bushes, little little tight bushes and stuff around here and there, but uh these things are everywhere, and people don't understand how plentiful they are. Even in just my area alone, there is so many Sasquatch in this area. It's incredibly crazy and ridiculous how many there are in just this area. And just west, no, I'm sorry, east of me is the flat plains of Colorado, right? There's been sightings of Sasquatch out there. There's no trees up there. It's just these rolling kind of high plains out there with tornadoes. And Windsor, Colorado, there was a Sasquatch spotted just outside of town walking the river, which makes sense, headed towards the mountains, but walked right through town at night in the riverbed, down where the river runs through town, coming out of the mountains there.
That's wild. I haven't heard that. Obviously, you have a much better finger on the pulse with this subject than I do. I kind of do a little bit of everything, a little bit of true crime, a little bit of cryptid, a little bit of paranormal. So I'm not as tapped in as you are, because you're much more hyper focused on this. So with these sightings, do you find that there's like a season of the year that like there's more sightings reported? Or is there like even maybe not just sightings, but like based on your evidence and your research, do you find that there's a time of year that they are more active?
Absolutely, and that's spring and fall.
Oh, so we're coming up on one of the seasons right now, here in about a month or so.
Yeah, when it starts warming up out here, I'll get out there. It's kind of patchy with snow still, because we just got snow on the ground clear into June. I want to say June or so, and it during the springtime. Okay, the thing that people don't understand, Sasquatch in areas move at different times of the years. They don't just hang out in one little spot, one little side of a mountain in an area. They're very territorial. They don't hang out in their one little spot. Throughout the summer, they move into smaller, little areas throughout the summer, and they kind of migrate around in that small area. But when it comes to winter, they actually move out, follow game, follow the weather patterns to their winter grounds where it's more manageable. And during the spring, well, the same thing goes for game too. Elk, deer, all this stuff. They move up back into the little higher elevations, little manageable, away from people kind of locations, And during the springtime, those Sasquatch, they're in the process of moving back in. Who knows? It might even be some kind of like mating time for them. I don't know. I don't know that. That's one aspect I really honestly don't know.
Right.
But yes, they do. The biggest time for sightings, and for me myself seeing these creatures every single year, it's hot and heavy during the spring, hot and heavy during the fall.
That's interesting, because I never, I've done a couple of videos on this channel about Bigfoot, Yetis, and then obviously I would assume you've seen this, but the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Yeah.
So I did a full video kind of explaining that, and my personal opinion on it is, I have a friend. He was actually on the last episode of this podcast. He is a makeup prosthetic artist for, like, he does films and stuff like that. And he was like, man, we didn't have the technology to make a suit that lifelike back then, let alone even like now. And I feel like they would have, if they were trying to sell it off as a real one without, like, as if it was like, it was just a guy in a suit, I feel like they would have pushed a little harder in trying to sell it, as opposed to being scared to show it like they were.
Yeah, and the only reason why Bob and them actually rolled up on that Sasquatch like they did, and caught it so surprisingly like it did. The Sasquatch are very militaristic. They're very tactical. They know when something's walking through the woods just by the sound of the footprints.
Right.
They came walking up on this area on horseback. Well, it's going to sound kind of like elk or something.
Yeah, it's not going to sound like footprints. It's going to sound like hoof prints.
Yeah. So when they rounded the corner, Patty, the Sasquatch, uh, she was totally thrown off, and I could totally see that during the film and during their process, and when they say they walked up on it, and I said, well, that makes total sense. They weren't on foot. If they were on foot, she would have bailed out. She would have known that there's a human walking up on them,
Right.
and but I do believe the only reason why they came onto that Sasquatch, and that was such a perfect scenario, was they were on horseback, and that Sasquatch was caught off guard to see these humans sitting on the back of these horses.
Yeah, I found that a lot of people. It's a very decisive video. It's very like on that video alone, it did really good on views, and a lot of the comments are just people arguing back and forth whether or not it's real. So let's go ahead and jump back to your initial story that you told us at the beginning of the episode. You were saying that you realized later on that it having red eyes was not necessarily a good thing. Why is that?
Well, as the years went on and I experienced more and more Sasquatch, I learned that Sasquatch have a variety of eyes that glow at night, and some of them have eyes that glow white during the daytime. And like I call it the silverback man looking thing that I got on video up here. I call Sasquatch Mountain because that place is insanity with Sasquatch, and they're not very big. They're only 5 foot tall, maybe even a little shorter than me. Most of the Sasquatch around here are like that. But throughout the years of investigating these Sasquatch, every time I've run into an area where there's been really aggressive Sasquatch, they were on the mean side. Um, their eyes will glow red. Their eyes will
So it's like
glow
a
red.
warning. It's like a when animals like perk up or they their feathers start of kind of bloom out. It's the same kind of thing, right? It's more like a warning sign.
Well, it's not so much just the Sasquatch just having red eyes just to warn you off. That okay. Another thing that noticed in my investigations throughout the years, there's two type. I know there's more types of Sasquatch that I'm not real. I don't understand a whole hell of a lot because they're more um, how do you say, reclusive, I guess you could say. But the two types are, there's mean ones and there's good ones. The mean ones are similar to like the good Sasquatch. They're very hateful. They don't get along with the good Sasquatch. And the areas that I've been into with the good Sasquatch, uh, they make a lot of structures. I'm beginning to think that these X's that you find out in the woods are a symbolism of that particular territory for that type of Sasquatch. And I've noticed areas where there's the meaner Sasquatch that will give you more of a hard time, more of a threatening time, or will actually hurt you. Um, there's really no structures. You'll find some breaks. You'll mostly find a lot of trees that are just debarked. Different things like that. Not too much in the way of structures at all. You'll find some footprints and impressions. It's really odd how that works. And the good Sasquatch, I've noticed, their eyes will glow yellowish orange, orange colored, like the silverback guys, silverback gorilla looking dudes. Their eyes glow on orange, and they are a peaceful Sasquatch. They've never gave me any problems. They either run from me or just look at me and take off. And blue, light blue, green. I've seen all those colors coming off these eyes, but those red ones are more are those mean ones. They're the ones that look at you like they hate you. They don't want you there. And the good ones don't necessarily want you in their territory, but they're not going to go out of their way really to hurt you. Then again, you're dealing with a being that you don't know what they're thinking on a daily basis or at the time you even meet them. They have their own thought, they have their own culture, they have their one could, be just upset that day for some reason, and you just happen to be there. He's not gonna be very nice to you, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
but these eye colors, and I've told people that came out on investigations with me, and I've told other people when you go hiking in the woods, don't wear red. Don't wear red. That's a bad idea. I don't. The color red, you're asking for trouble out in those woods. And later on, I found out that a lot of missing people, a lot of people that ended up gone were wearing red
Wow.
backpack, red coat, maybe just a red backpack. They had red on them. And I laughed. I laughed. And told my buddies, my wife, I said, remember I said this a long time ago. I said, just from personal experience, because I had actually went on an investigation some years back, and I was wearing this red like Christmas shirt on. It was, 2 months before Christmas, and I just picked the shirt up. I thought it was a good idea, and I thought I was going to be in trouble. The forest came down around me. Uh, it was a very, very scary experience. A lot of the rocks that were being thrown at me would damn near hit me. The vocals were just like if you walked into an area and you just know by their vocals that they're so pissed off that you're there, and maybe you're doing something they don't like or something. And I figured to put two and two together, it's this red shirt that I got on. They don't like it because I've investigated that area before, and I've had on a black shirt, and I've had on a brown shirt, and I've even had on a blue shirt, and they didn't act like that before. I went in there with that red shirt. They didn't like that. They didn't like that at all. It just all hell broke loose. And I immediately turned around and left. I got out of there.
So you've had rocks thrown at you by these creatures before.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh,
that is I applaud you for sticking with it after all that. I probably wouldn't have. I'd have been like, all right, well, I'm going to find a new profession. I don't want rocks thrown at me like that. And I'm assuming they're not small rocks either.
No. Usually the bigger rocks, like the mean Sasquatch, they'll hit you. I've been hit in the back with rocks before. I actually thought it was my ex-wife at the time. Let me tell you about that here in a minute. And one of my buddies, when we were out and we were in Utah, and I got decked right in the back on the left-hand side of my back by a rock, and I thought it was him. I said, what the F are you throwing rocks at me like that for, dude? That freaking hurt. And he was like, I ain't throwing nothing, He's like, it wasn't me, dude. I looked at my ex-wife at the time. I said, well, it could have been you because you're off to my right side in front of me. But my buddy wasn't backing me, and he insisted, he didn't hit me in the back with a rock, and it freaking hurt. And there was another time that we were investigating an area in Utah, and it was just me and my ex-wife, and she got plowed right in the forehead by a rock. It was probably an inch by an inch kind of round rock, and this rock came out of nowhere. I seen it flying, and it looked like it came out of nowhere, and it hit her right in the middle of the forehead, and it hurt her so bad that she fell to her knees and she started crying. And I said, okay, that's enough. We jumped in the car. I took off. We actually had to take her to the hospital because she already started bruising on the left-hand side of her left eye. And yeah,
that's insane. Like the fact that you're dealing with all of that. Granted, it doesn't seem like every single time, but you were showing us a little something before we went on the air. It looks like you have some samples of stuff you've captured out in the field. If you wouldn't mind sharing those on the show.
Here's a couple of footprints. Before I show these, I'm gonna remind the audience that that every location you go to in the U.S., more so the western side of the United States, Sasquatch, they don't have real big caveman-ish footprints. All the Sasquatch that I've got on video and that I've seen around here, the biggest one I've maybe seen, because I'm 6'3", the biggest one I've seen was maybe 7 foot.
Wow, and that's like way off from what you normally hear. Normally you hear like, oh, they're 7 foot at a minimum in some areas.
Yeah, and most of those giant Sasquatch, I'm sure there's been a few monsters documented going through here with 18-inch tracks, but that's rare. That's a really, really kind of uncommon. But their feet look real human, more human-like than the ones in the eastern areas. The Sasquatch on the eastern areas, Ozarks, and just out east that way, their feet can, I've seen them 24 inches long by 2 or 3 foot wide. Monster Sasquatch out there.
Right, but you're saying in your area they're 7 foot at a maximum, almost.
Yeah, and the biggest footprint I think I came across, which was this last summer, that actually broke the record of the footprints that I found, was about a 15-inch footprint.
Wow.
And the biggest one I found in the area for quite a while now was like 14, and last year I found that 15. But this one here, I think this one's about probably 10 inches long. It's real wide, real big toes on it. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is for everybody who's listening, just a reminder, this is on YouTube and Spotify as well with the video, so you can actually see this plaster that Zeus is holding up for us. So what, based on your information, your knowledge, what makes this different from a human foot?
They do have this mid-tarsal break, and there's not much difference in between. Like if one of these guys up here were step in the mud, and you were to step in the mud right next to it, it's pretty hard to decipher uh the difference in the two footprints. You know what I mean? I do know that pinky toe. See how big it is? How big that pinky toe is? Let me get my bearings here. Oh, yeah, right here.
Right.
Um, you see how round and nice that looks? And if you were to take a look at a human footprint, this pinky toe is real smashed up against that toe. I don't know if you take your own shoe off, you could kind of see what I'm talking about. So it's kind of almost smashed off and pointed
Right. Yeah,
as
I know
far as
what you're
that
talking about.
goes. And like this toe right here is huge.
Yeah, that
Look at
looks
the
like a
size of that
huge big toe.
Yeah, this toe is like my toe, and I'm 6'3", wear a size 12. It's only half the size of that, my big toe.
Wow.
And this foot is smaller than my foot. And all these, even this pinky toe and the rest of these toes, because even this middle toe right here, that thing's huge.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
And this print, there was when I came down to that little runoff pond up in the mountains, it was about a 2-mile walk in while I was investigating, and I ran into this runoff pond. It had a little area, and there was some moose tracks in it that walked in there. And then I noticed when I came up on it, one print of this guy, and there was a set of prints of this one, the smaller one.
Oh, so so both of these prints were in the same spot.
Same spot.
Wow. So it's not just an isolated creature. There was two of them.
There was 3 of them.
There's 3 of them. Wow. Okay, so that's pretty intense. So from that moment, you see these footprints. Did you see the creatures at that point? Or were they too far ahead at that point?
No, I want to say at the time when I casted those prints, they came through the day before, so they weren't far ahead. I didn't see them in the area. I seen evidence. I seen structures. I seen the fresh breaks, and I followed some bends. Bends that the Sasquatch will make these bends usually point towards water. And that's what I did. I followed these series of bends, and that's when I came up on that runoff pond from the snow. And there's like trees laying in it. It was just kind of nasty looking little pond. It didn't really have much moss in it because it's so cold. But on the north side of that pond, there was kind of grassy, muddy area, and that's where I casted these prints out, is in that little spot. And the bigger print, there was one print, like it came out, left one print, and that was it. And the other 2 prints, with the other one's a little bit smaller than this, they continued walking kind of around the pond, the front end of that, and then they went back into the forest, and that was it. And
Wow.
the tracks were just your typical Sasquatch track, end over end over end, instead of humans being, shoulder width walks.
Right. I've never actually heard that Sasquatch footprints are one in front of the other and not, because they are bipedal. So you would think that they would have some sort of resemblance to how we walk, but I guess
No.
Apparently no.
Mm-mm. Every now and then you'll find them almost at a shoulder width walk, but more tucked in. But about 98% of the time, they're end over end print walks, just like that, right over the front of each other, a straight line of footprints. And if you look at a human, the way a human walks is shoulder width walking. Each track is on either side going all the way up.
That is intense. All right, Zeus, before we wrap up here today, what advice would you give to anybody that is looking to start investigating in their area for Sasquatch?
The first advice is understand your land. Understand the type of trees. Understand the lay of the land. Understand weather patterns. Understand game movement. Understand food sources, springs, water sources. And when you go out, try to figure out, because the Sasquatch will make structures in particular areas. They just don't throw them out anywhere. And they like to use particular trees that they like. And I don't know why that is, but it's true. And if you go out and you see a pattern of structures, and pay attention to those trees. Pay attention to what's nearby as far as food, but pay attention to the type of trees that they make them out of. And then when you go up on and you're looking at maybe maps, or you're on a ridge and you're looking out and you see a certain type of tree, and then you see the very same type of tree, kind of almost a whole forest of the same type of trees that you've been noticing structures have been coming about in, go investigate that area. That's most likely where you're going to find structures at, because you got to understand the sun, how as the sun moves across the land, the shadow patterns on each part of the land, of your rolling hills, your small mountains to big mountains. Understand your ridges, how the sun hits either side of the ridge. Understand your water, and like I said, your game movement, and the type of trees. It's very important, the type of trees.
Awesome. So Zeus, before we leave here, go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you, because I know you have a YouTube channel of your own. You probably, I don't know if you do a lot of social media of documenting. I know you don't like to disclose your locations for obvious reasons, but maybe you share some of your findings, or maybe you have a website people can find you. So where can people go and learn more about you and what you do?
I have a YouTube channel. You can go to Project Sasquatch on YouTube. You can find me there. You can find me on Instagram. I post a lot of pictures up there of evidence and footprints and structures and pictures of Sasquatch themselves. And I also have a BitChute, which I kind of fairly recently opened up. I'm still downloading more videos to it. I've got 135 videos, I think. And I also have my Facebook group called Project Sasquatch, and my regular Project Sasquatch page. The group, you can go in and post, your sightings. If you have pictures of the Sasquatch, pictures of footprints, structures, any kind of evidence, you can post it on there for everybody to see, kind of present your evidence, and show the stuff that you find or what you think. It's a pretty cool place. I do not allow trolls there. I protect the people on that page very, very well. I don't put up with the laughing and the discrediting and the bad part of the trolls on that page. They get kicked, because people, when you experience Sasquatch, it is such a life-changing experience. It could be for the good or the negative, and it's a very serious thing to a lot of people when they have a sighting. It could be very traumatizing, and they don't. It's hard enough for some people even talk about it. But if if somebody wants to, they can come up onto my website and they can talk about their experience of their sighting and what happened. And all the people on my page, on my Facebook page, of all had, most of them had sightings. A lot of them were very understanding, and actually we all talk about stuff. You know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely.
So you could find me in all those places. BitChute, YouTube, Instagram, and the 2 Facebook pages. So
awesome. Well, Zeus, I want to say thank you again for coming on. I appreciate this. I reached out to you because I found you on another Facebook group about cryptids and paranormal. And I just want to say thank you. This has been a couple weeks in the making.